Darren, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on and excited to talk about Terex Finlay. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jared. Great to be here. Thank you.
I'd like to kick off. I've probably mentioned him 100 times on the show. One of the old CEO hero of mine is Jack Welch. And he talks about your mission and values need to be so crystal clear. So I wanted to quickly read Terex Finlay: to constantly evolve our products, providing innovative and pragmatic, I love the word pragmatic in there, pragmatic solutions to real life situations and applications. And so I was reading through just sort of the lineage, and that mission and vision is just, Terex Finlay has just followed that exactly the way it's written. It's pretty amazing. So I hope today we can actually walk through some of the equipment and some of the evolution of the equipment.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. Let's kick it off with, can we take it back, Darren, because it's a company that's been around a long time. They've sort of pioneered so many parts of the industry. Can you just sort of take us back to the beginning of Terex Finlay?
Yeah, sure. The pioneer of the industry was Darren Finlay, and John had an engineering company and several quarries or pits in Northern Ireland. He also had a block making equipment section of his engineering company, and he decided to solve the challenges of having to build stationary screens at each individual pit. So he set his mind to building the first mobile wheeled screen plant, and he did that and patented the single shaft design and sold his first unit to the commercial market in 1958. So Terex Finlay and the predecessor Finlay Hydro Screens were truly the first mobile screen manufacturer in Northern Ireland that started off that industry, which is now world leading, and quite a lot of tracked and mobile screen plants come from one county in Northern Ireland, which is County Tyrone, where I'm from, and I'm quite proud to be part of that world-leading equipment line and industry.
I have to ask probably a question you've been asked a million times, and that might be understating it. The Finlay and Finlay, is there a correlation there, or just the name?
No, just happenstance. I do come from the same, I guess, county, but no relation as far as I know. If I had $10 for every time I was asked that, I think I could retire, but
I'm sure. Yeah, no, I saw and I was like, oh, I'm going to have to ask him this, because if I don't ask him, everybody's gonna be like, why didn't I? So going back to that region, what is there a specific reason that county developed, so much of that similar development was coming out of there?
It was strong in engineering and manufacturing, with farmers doing a lot of the manufacturing themselves. I think it evolved from there. And once this new piece of equipment came on that could outproduce some of the stationary pieces because of the incline on the screen and how the screens were tensioned, it became a very popular product. There were break-off companies from that. The supply chain then had a lot to do with it. So that area retained engineering prowess in the crushing and screening industry right through to today.
Yeah, it's so interesting when it's these one region sort of develop this whole sort of industry around, it just almost just one product, and it just keeps kind of expanding out.
Yeah.
Then when did Terex come on the scene?
Terex purchased Finlay Hydro Screen in 1999. They already had a purpose-built factory in 1976. So they acquired Terex Finlay at that time.
Okay, so Darren, just because of course now they're Terex bought Finlay, and now it's Terex Finlay. But can you give us the back shot or the back scope of what Terex was coming into, them as a company at the time?
Terex were coming into a very profitable company with talented workforce in Northern Ireland. So they were acquiring a worldwide dealer network as well as the engineering side of it. So Terex purchased a few companies around that time, and the synergy between Terex and Terex Finlay evolved over the years, and I think it's been a very good match.
So then you get into, then there's this next stage where, and I'm going to sort of make some statements and then just correct everything that I get wrong, please. So at first it's starting as a screening application, but then then Terex Finlay as one company, they start implementing crushers into the system. Is that right?
Correct. First crusher was implemented on the Terex Finlay line in 2005, and that incorporated Jake's Jaw, which was another Terex company that was acquired. It was an Australian company. So they were able to take advantage of that crushing chamber, very robust, long lifetime chamber, and put that onto a chassis and built an excellent machine around that. So that's an example of how, the original Finlay Hydro Screen became Terex Finlay, and then built upon that with the strengths within the company.
So is that, that must have been a bit of a game changer for them as a company now, right? Because you see a lot of these units now, these cones and jaw crusher units.
Yeah.
That must be a huge part of the business now.
It is. They're a massive part of the business that seems to be growing more so than the bread and butter screens, as I would say. Our crusher sales are growing every year, and the variety of crusher sizes. Finlay have implemented R&D to continue the growth there. So we feel we can offer everything from a small construction operator to a large corporation, and the capacities and tonnages have increased as well with the models. So we can achieve almost, production rates comparable to some static plants now.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I wanted to kind of, it's easy on a show like this, the primary and the secondary crusher. It's sort of, there'll be a lot of equipment people watching, of course, but I also wanted to kind of set up the units based on some of those applications. Could you kind of just walk us through it, Darren? Like an example of the secondary units, example of the primaries, and just sort of paint a picture. And you've sent pictures and videos, so we'll be bringing those up while you kind of walk through it. But I'd love to sort of paint that picture of what we're talking about application wise.
Yeah. Primarily, you're going to have a jaw crusher in there to take the blasted material and bring it down to a manageable size for the secondary crusher. It'll depend on what geographical area you're in, the gradation of material, whether you can use a cone crusher or an impactor. For instance, in the Northeast, there's a lot of granite, so you wouldn't be able to use an impactor. It would be cost prohibitive because of the wear costs. So you'd use a cone. In the Midwest, where you're dealing with limestone, it's debatable where you need a primary or not. Some of our impactors can take 24-inch minus. So usually it's, the jaw to break it up, the impactor to break it down, and some screens then to separate it, and conveyors to close the loop and bring the oversized material back around to get recrushed to meet that spec.
What would be the largest units of cone and jaw that you sell?
On the cones, it would be our C1554. We incorporated the respected and renowned Cedar Rapids MVP 450 cone onto that chamber, and built the crusher around it. The biggest jaw crusher model we have at the moment is our 1480, and we are going to be releasing a larger jaw, a hybrid version, but our 1480 is a 55-inch by 32-inch, and then the hybrid version is LJ 5139, and that has a 51 by 39 gate, so quite big.
Okay, the hybrid system, I see it come up a lot. Sorry for my layman question, what exactly is the hybrid system that I see mentioned quite often?
Hybrid system, it can come in two formats. It can come with a complete onboard power pack that's capable of running the machine, and then the availability to plug into either a genset or mains power, so the customer can take advantage of the fuel savings. Usually on the larger machines, there's a lot of mains power static equipment. So having the capability of it tying into that and taking advantage of the savings is important to some of our customers. The second type would be a smaller engine that we would call a mule engine, and that would unfold the machine, track the machine, and then the rest of the functions would be driven by electric motors that we can plug into the mains or a genset.
I see. Oh, okay. Okay. The thing I was wondering too is that I know this is a little bit of an engineering question as well, but once you start implementing cones and jaws, and that's sort of, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I was raised around equipment. So a lot of, pulling out these jaws out of mine sites and things like that. And I'm just wondering, how much did the units change once you start putting on that sort of weight onto these types of machines? It must be kind of a completely different unit, even just the structure of it to support that kind of capacity.
Yeah, for instance, the LJ 5139, our engineers were successful in designing it so that it could come apart in three pieces if need be, 2 or 3 pieces. So the equipment has jacking legs on it that can raise the hopper off it and get it to transport weight. Transport weight is a big restriction on mobile equipment, and there is some art and engineering around that. But yes, that it does become a challenge when you get into your bigger production units, keeping those weights down, because here in the States, even individual states will have different maximum permitted loads. So yeah, that can be a challenge. But we do find that the majority of our business seems to be in that center range, where you've got your 50 and 40 ton jaws, impactors, cones. So yeah, weight is a big consideration. Yes.
I noticed, so I was looking at the timeline in 2005, again, please correct all the wrong terminology I use, the J 1175 using is it called Jaquas?
Jake's.
Okay.
Jake's jaw, yeah.
The Jake's jaw. And then in 2008, that was, they added in the tracked cone crusher, the C1540P.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, 2008, there was the C1540P, and the P stands for pre-screen. So we were the first company to put a pre-screen on a cone. The advantage of that is pulling the fines out of the chamber before it reaches the chamber, and you get increased production and reduced wear costs. But yes, we utilized another company within the Terex umbrella, Pegson, and put that Pegson 1000 cone on there on our chamber and built an excellent machine around it. That cone chamber was on the market probably 50 years plus, so it was, a very well tried and tested unit.
Right. So then as a customer, you're always going, okay, I trust the cone, and then I trust the screening process. So putting them together, it's an easy transition for customers to sort of accept, essentially.
Yes, it's a stepping stone path that gives them some kind of comfort zone, the robustness of our design. And we're using, chambers that have been tried and tested and are recognized in the market.
The other thing is, now, do all of these units, again, apologize for the layman question, but do all these units, this horizontal, like these triple decks, all of these integrate, or does that then just become a screening? Are those just screening units, or do those integrate in with the jaw crushers and the cone crushers as well? Or how does that sort of system come together?
Usually when you're talking about the large horizontal screens, like a 20 by 6 triple deck, it's going to go after a conveyor of some kind, whether it's coming from an impactor or a cone. It's cost prohibitive to stockpile the material and then have to use a loader to feed it. So in some instances, yes, it will be fed by a loader or an excavator, but 99% of the time it's going to come after another crushing unit or a conveyor coming from a static plant. Yeah.
I noticed that the jaws kind of came first to be integrated from Terex Finlay. Is that because would there be a higher demand? I know this is, it's all so dependent on the customer.
Yeah.
But would the jaws be in a higher demand because there's a lot more primary crushing across multiple industries, recycling and aggregate and so on?
Yeah. It's an easier stepping stone into the crushing market also. A jaw is more fundamental in its design. It does have a wider variety of customer base, from the little recycler to the guy that's blasting in the quarry. So a jaw is very versatile. So I believe that could have been some of the factors as to why they went with the jaw first.
Obviously I'm not going to dig too much, but it's just when I watch that lineage, and then again, going back to that mission statement, and you don't see the word pragmatic in a mission statement very much. And as soon as I see a word that I see so many companies, they'll use words like, I don't know, just as soon as I see the word inspire in a mission statement, I go, oh boy. Because it's, that should be part. I guess the one thing I heard one time is like, when you see customer service, be worried, because customer service is a given. That should just be in your blood, that you give customer service. So when I see these very specific terms in a company, and then I saw that lineage, I went, they're very purposely looking at always sort of progressing forward and in a way that meets the customer's demand, which is right in that mission statement. And with that in mind, that I think it's called the Spalic flip flow screen, which I hadn't heard of. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. There was a collaboration, and still is a collaboration with Spalic, they're a German company, over 100 years of lineage. So very well renowned and respected company. And we were the first to put flip flow technology on a forward-facing scalping or heavy-duty screen. We've also got them on our incline range as well. And the Spalic, the flip flow technology, provides more G-force to separate the material and help clean the material. They excel in tough applications, like contaminated soils, car fluff, slag, incinerator waste, some of the nastier side of the screening industry where the applications are pretty tough. When a quarry comes to the end of its natural life, there's a lot of residue and clay material left over. The 88.3 reclaimer with the Spalic box could come up and utilize that, whereas another screen would fail. And they use rubber mats on the bottom, which contract and pop the material up.
That's what they're doing. Okay.
Yeah. So instead of a shaking action, it's more of a pop action that projects the material upwards. and it's got about probably 2 more Gs in a regular screen. Regular screens running at, anywhere from 4 to 4.5, and the Spalek is around 6 or 6.5. So it's much more aggressive. So that was another feather in our cap, having that. We could go into scrap yards, C&D yards, mulch facilities. We were able to do the nastier side of screening, and sometimes do the jobs that trommels had been doing historically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you were talking through that, and I was thinking, oh, if you were a competitor of yours, you must be going, oh, are you kidding me? Now you've solved that problem.
Yeah, it's fantastic, the applications that working in this industry you can get into, and the people you meet. It's a pleasure to try and find out what their challenges are and solve them with the best piece of equipment. Obviously there's a greater cost involved in the Spalek machine because it's not your standard screen box, but the return on investment from the customers, we seem to be pretty happy.
And how long, have they been in the market for quite a while, these units? Yes.
I believe the flip flow, the Spalek screen came in, I believe it was 2013.
It's quite, it's, again, working on these sites, I've been to sites, seeing these screens all mucked up and all that stuff. And I'm sure you've seen it more than me. And unfortunately, people like me sometimes look at that and go, oh, that's just part of the way it is.
Mm-hmm. And the exciting thing about the Spalek box is you can actually extend your screening season. If you're if you're a topsoil producer or a mulch producer, compost, you're able to add another month either side of your season because you have a screen that can operate in high moisture conditions.
So and because of the essentially less cleanup or the need of a trommel in some situations, you're less downtime, less maintenance, and you're adding extensions on both sides of your season.
Yes. Plus, if you don't need a trommel, then you can use that 883 for whether it's sand and gravel applications or construction demolition waste. It's robust enough to take the biggest material, like a 2-foot cube going over the screen deck, and find enough applications where you can screen sand. So it's, the 883 is quite a tool.
Yeah, this is one of those things when you're doing a demo of it, we are happy to come out there and be talking and doing an interview, whether in the background. We'd love to do that.
Cool, yeah.
I've been trying to get everybody that has interesting stuff to start flying us all over the country doing that. The TLink, that's another thing. To be honest, Darren, I had a bit of overload because last night, some shows I go through a couple hours and I go, okay, I kind of get it. But the more I read, the more questions I had. And I was just like, okay, well, I hope he knows his stuff because so can you talk about TLink?
Yeah, we incorporated TLink into our screeners and crushers, and it was quite common in, the yellow iron industry with the loaders and excavators, but it wasn't in the crushing and screening line. And Terex brought in, they brought it in, I believe was 2016. Yeah, 2016 they brought it in, and they offered it to their customer base for 3 years free initially. And with those reports, you could get a location of the machine, the engine error codes, the machine error codes, your fuel consumption, and then if it was a crusher, you could get your wear rates as well. When you went in and changed your blow bars or your jaws or cones, you hit a button and reset the life. So it really gives the owner an opportunity to see what the machine was truly costing him and where the machine was and how it was running. So it became a very, very valuable tool for both Terex Finlay and for the customer. It's quite neat. You can put a geo fence on it. So if a dealer's got a large rental fleet and someone tries to steal it, the dealer gets an alarm. They can put a time fence on it if they're renting it and it's only supposed to be run from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. and it's run outside those hours, they can get an alarm as well. Some of the really cool stuff that Terex Finlay provides to their dealers, there are weekly reports on their machine fleets when they're due for service, so that the dealer can do preventative maintenance and scheduled maintenance. So it's been a successful tool. Terex Finlay took the route of having two communication sources within that. So the TLink system communicates via satellite and via cell phone. So the idea being wherever the machine is in the world, it can get one of those transmissions and communicate with the dashboard. So it's been so successful that Terex rolled out 7 years free. We're able to see what's going wrong with our machines in the field. We're able to use the dealer's technical service and advise them what's going on. And the customer gets to see all that information as well. So it's a fabulous tool. It's brought the industry along quite a lot.
Okay, Darren, I have my own little bias when I'm doing these shows, and I come out of a space which is a lot of aggregate inquiry and that, so I really go with that section. But there's sort of there's recycling, there's all types of things. One part I really wanted to make sure we cover too is the on-highway crushing with the asphalt and that sort of thing, and just sort of set up what that looks like, what type of machines are being used. Can you sort of walk us through that segment as well?
Yeah, that's a good example of something that hasn't been done up to the last 10 years. Usually when there's road construction, bridge demolition, all the material has to be hauled away to a separate site, crushed and then hauled back, and not necessarily within the scope of the contractor that's doing it. So what I've noticed is that more and more I see on highway projects, impact crushers on the highway, crushing the material that they are taken up with either milling machines or excavators, or if a bridge is coming down, putting that concrete into the impactor, crushing it on site and almost windrowing it in piles along the highway to be put back down as road base. So you can imagine the savings and the logistics savings that a contractor will reap the benefit of by having a crusher on the side of the highway. Or I-120 RS has a capability of pre-screening the material. It passes through the chamber, it hits a double deck screen, 5x12, and then it has a recirculating conveyor that brings the material back around to get recrushed to that spec. So you're almost getting 100% spec material off that machine that the contractor can use. So very, very unique, interesting way to recycle right at the site. And that's where mobile equipment comes into its own.
That must be, that the demand for that must just be continuously increasing. I can't imagine in 20 years they'll be hauling stuff away to then crush it, and that's going to get eliminated, I would think.
Yes. We're starting to see that now. People are taking advantage of those cost savings. Yeah. So.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to ask, because you mentioned a couple of the units for both the asphalt and the concrete, or do you mentioned the 120 RS? I was just wondering, is that the unit, or are there multiple sizes, or just the setup of that?
There is multiple sizes, but for the transport limitations, that machine packs a punch for its size. So anything bigger than that, you have to split it into two pieces, right, and it becomes expensive to move. But this machine can be moved in one piece. There is a smaller unit, an IC 110 RS. It's new to the market, but I personally have more experience with the 120 RS. It's a fantastic unit.
So I guess what you kind of need it to be able to, it's probably important to be able to easily transport it because of the nature of road work. You're obviously continually moving your central site.
Yes.
Yeah. So in that smaller unit, where would that, like this, I would assume this is at a like this would be at a highway level, would that smaller unit be for like smaller road work, or is that just a transport unit?
The smaller unit is designed more for urban environments. When you're moving around cities, it's easier to move. It's designed for the smaller recycler or contractor that doesn't have the larger trailers to move it around. So we try to find a piece of equipment for every section in the market. So the smaller pieces will tie into those individuals.
You talk a little bit about the dealer, of course, General Equipment. Micah was on our show, and that show got a great response. They're a dealer for Terex Finlay. And one of the questions I always ask people when they're sort of in that dealer position is that communication between the manufacturer, the dealer, and the customer, because that's obviously such an important relationship to keep everything going. And this sort of the TLink must sort of it automatically has a whole new level of connection between those three parties, right?
Yeah, it really is. It ties the customer, the dealer, and the manufacturer together. I'll tell you a funny story that will illustrate it. Usually when you're in competition in this market, there's a lot of competition, and people tend to favor what they know. So we had reports that the machine was performing really poorly, and we were able to go into the TLink and see when the machine was idling. There was quite a lot of idle time. So the owner of the company didn't appreciate the machine's idling for hours, and the machine is idling for hours didn't look good for the manufacturer, and it was hindering the dealer's sale. So they checked it in the idling towers, and the crew wasn't working the machine. So it was able to spotlight that. It's just true facts and figures from the machine. It takes away the bias. It's great.
Takes away just that confusion that can happen. I mean, we've all been on a site where, there's three different versions of the same problem, or three different perceived versions of the same problem. And I mean, people get quite passionate about,
yes,
to say the least, passionate about their positions. And, being able to eliminate those issues. I mean, millions of dollars. We're literally talking about millions of dollars on the table. You can start to, okay, before everybody gets going on this, let's look at these data sets. I mean, is it a change in communication as well? Even personnel, how you sort of have to communicate with customers, because now it's sort of, how do I say it? There's also a little bit of a challenge where if people are used to sort of doing it opinion based and sort of, flushing out these ideas, now you kind of got to be careful to not just plunk numbers in front of them and go, oh, this is the answer. Like, there's no point discussing this. Yeah. There's been a massive change in the industry towards technology, even since I've been in it 18 years. Guys didn't have emails; they used fax machines. But the newer generation that are in the aggregate business are embracing it, and they see it as a tool for them. Sure, you don't want to just, as you say, give them a load of facts and figures. It's got to be complementing to solving their challenges. So yes, I agree. You have to put it in there with the features and benefits of the machine and how it's going to make them money on a daily basis. When I had Mike on, and now because Terex Finlay was coming on, I've got a kind of chance to. I kind of joke sometimes. I get best friends for about 2 weeks. We talk. We're planning the show, and then you and I might not talk for another year if you're coming back on. I've got a chance to know them a little bit and email back and forth, and they're so on it. It just they're engaged. They seem like they're having fun. They seem to really enjoy working with their customers.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that is coming from just their management, the team they've built, just the area they're from. I don't know what it is, but they just seem to have that. And I kind of wanted to touch on, for you, because the dealership, I mean, I was looking at your dealer network, and I was joking before the show, I was looking for spots. I was like, oh, well, it doesn't look like there's a dot on Egypt. Maybe I can go over there. But what makes a good dealer? I know that's a big question, but I'm sure there are some key things that you look for that say this is a dealer that we really are happy to have on board.
There's a lot of things that make a good dealer, but the forward-facing person that meets the customer has got to be knowledgeable. So the sales rep, whoever they are, have got to know what they're talking about and be able to recognize the problem the customer has and find the most economic solution that meets their production needs. So the sales team is very important. Also, the service and general take their service very, very seriously. There's a lot of different brands of equipment in the market, but if you can't keep your product line running, then you're not going to be successful in the market. That ties into parts, which, good dealers are not afraid to stock adequate parts so that when there is a machine down, they can get up as quickly as possible. You remember, if there's one machine down in a train, it's affecting 3 other machines and loading equipment as well. The whole crew's down for one machine, and that could be tens of thousands of dollars, per day. So it's very important to have the parts there and to get the equipment up and going again. We're in the crushing and screening business. The machines are basically designed to stop shaking and crushing themselves apart, but they all do fail. So parts are very important. And ongoing training of the staff, is important. Any company that takes financial commitment and time to train their staff and keep them up to date on regulations and new equipment is going to see a return on it. So, and then obviously marketing is very important. Meal drops have been less used in recent years. Everyone's taking advantage of social media platforms. So being involved in marketing is very important. And then obviously just having the correct machines for the sales guys. There's no point having 2 screeners in your fleet when your territory is heavily crusher based. So having the tools for the guys to go out and sell it, training the guys to sell it correctly, and be safety based is they're all good signs of a great dealer, which General is.
There's a lot of, I mean, we could do a show just on that because there's some interesting things you touched on, but the one that the stocking, of course, the business owner side of me goes, oh, there's a cost. And I'm sure that's it. So, and is that one of the differences where a top dealer, they're willing to actually invest in the parts and the pieces that need to keep it running? Whereas on the opposite side, a dealer who's just trying to gets what the bare bones of what they absolutely need. And is that what you see those top dealers, they're almost investing beyond what they need to just to make sure? Yes,
they don't want their customers to be dissatisfied. We don't want them to be down for any period of time. Obviously, as a manufacturer, we give recommended spares and wears lists for each machine, but some dealers go over and above that, yes. Service and parts is paramount, no doubt.
Well, and I was wondering, you said about you provide recommendations. Now, do you do the same thing with like the technology training and things like that? Are you sort of, is that from the dealer level that they're doing that training, or are you continuously compiling information and then training their top level, and then that gets hopefully distributed out? Is that part of your system?
Correct. Yeah, there's training that goes on with the dealers each year, both sales training on new models, or sales training because there's new members and employees at the dealer. And then every year we also have technical training, whether it's in Louisville or dealer specific on site, where we have equipment on site, and our service managers will give them break fix scenarios where they have to find the problem. So technology is really tied into that so heavily. The role of a service technician and manager have become so reliant on technology, and they can get information faster right now than they ever could. So it's all pushing towards keeping the customer running, keeping the downtime at a minimal. And that's what it's all about with aggregate producers. You know, they've got a certain time each week that they want to maximize.
Yeah. You know, as just sort of you get to the tail end of this, Darren, I was curious because you said the company where it started in that county in Ireland, and now it's expanded. Of course, Terex Finlay it's a global company. And I'm just wondering though, just from your perspective, the difference, just in that, I mean, a lot of our audience is obviously the US and Canada. So I was just wondering, is there a difference in the European, that sort of European market versus American market, how the customers interact, the types of machinery they're wanting, obviously, again, dependent on what sort of materials they're handling. But what are some differences that stand out between the two markets that you've seen having worked in both markets?
I would say that the rental market is more embraced in North America. Very rarely could you walk into a dealership and the dealer would say, okay, that's not for rent. Every piece of equipment's for rent over here. There is a slight difference in Europe and the UK. They'll have maybe a rental fleet and a for sale fleet, although that is narrowing within the past years. They're becoming more like North America. The environmental regulations play a big impact in Europe. They've already got stage 5 machines, engines in the machines, and some of the larger production and construction sites, you cannot get in there unless your machines have some kind of green credits. So there is a difference there. Another difference I would say would be the projects, the larger projects in Europe, because of the dense population and the age, tend to be smaller. So the projects are smaller than they are in North America. And then certain regions within Europe also have very stringent transport dimension regulations where we have to produce a machine specifically for that market. I guess the J1160 would be a good example. We can completely revamp that machine so that it met the width, the height, and the weight dimensions to be moved around easily in Europe. So there is some differences.
Do you have, and those are actually interesting differences, but do you end up with different unit, like these are the American units and then these are the European unit? Does it go that far, or is it just there's more of them over here and then less, or does it actually get separated out a bit?
Well, some of our dealers would say we do need to produce, machines specifically designed for the American market. There tends to be a want to feed machines with loaders, and sometimes the hopper restrictions may stop that, and they have to feed it with an excavator. So North America, bigger is better. They would like bigger hoppers in some instances, but we do provide hopper extensions to most of our equipment. Another difference I would say is in Europe, it's quite common to walk into a large aggregate producer and see 8 machines at the face of the quarry. After they've blasted, they track the machines back and crush right there. In North America, the tracked equipment tends to be almost supplemental to the stationary product, although that has been changing, specifically on the coasts. And you mentioned general equipment. I've noticed that the market has changed to more acceptance towards tracks in the Midwest also.
Oh, okay. So, and that it's a sort of an interesting thing because, and I kind of, it's a little bit of a tricky question. I wonder how much do you start sort of, I guess that's part of the marketing, right? That you have to sort of educate on the advantages that are coming from both the US and Europe as they slowly sort of start to merge together best practices, right?
Yes, yes. You have to show the cost savings. Bottom line will always
Right.
open the door for you. You know, the benefits of tracked equipment is, you know, you can crush right at the quarry face. You don't need haul trucks to haul it out. The people that are buying your product can drive their truck right down to the quarry face, and you can load them there. That saves massive amount of fuel and wear on vehicles. So, yeah, it is a challenge because in some of the larger corporations, nobody wants to change from something that has worked for 50 years, but it is happening.
Yeah, I guess you'd probably see the biggest change when it's a new when it's a new operation, right? Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky when it's sort of integrating into an existing flow. Then it can be more challenging, right?
Yeah, entrepreneurs usually see the benefit of it, whereas, you know, corporations are slower to react because somebody's got to give the go ahead.
Yeah. Well, Darren, thanks for coming on the show. You know, there was I had a lot of notes here to cover. And I think it would, I think I remember saying to you, it takes about 2 minutes to do an overview of what we're going to talk about. And then you realize how fast. We had a lot of people say, well, you know, should we really do an hour show? And I go, wait till you're on the show and see how quickly an hour goes by.
Yeah. No, that was great. I really enjoyed it. Plenty more to talk about as well. So,
yeah, I hope you come back on because there was some things I wanted to get to, but there was just so much to cover. And I think it'll be interesting for the audience. It's sort of a setup show, and I do hope you come back. But thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
See, this is why I love equipment so much. You should have seen. There's so many links that I was like, but you know, I have to. Yeah. So hopefully to pick the right ones.
Yeah.
Thank you, Darren, for coming on. Gowdy, please let the audience know where they can follow, like, share, suggest guests, and tell us what we did wrong.
Yes. We can always do better. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got 2 episodes a week on there and many more coming. We also follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and you can contact us if you want to be on one of the shows, Crownsmen Energy, Mining Now, or The Crownsmen Show, info@crownsmen.com. You can also contact us if you'd like to recommend someone to be on the show. Because yes, anybody can be. Yeah.
Well, not anybody. We've had a few people that we've turned away.
Almost everybody.
I don't know what you're selling, but I don't think that the audience will appreciate us promoting it. Okay, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Terex Finlay, for doing this feature with us. Thank you to all our sponsors, but especially General Equipment. That's very cool. That sort of dealer, and we just did another show with Sophie where
they came on.
Yeah, Technica Mining.
Yeah.
So these collaborations that are starting to happen with the show, I think it adds a nice layer to what we're doing. So it's very exciting. Hope it keeps it going. Thank you, everyone. See you on the next episode of The Crownsmen Show.